Ready? Mambo Simbo, Mambo Simbo, Mambo Simbo.
For my friends Donnie and Jacob in the band, a studio in Australia is a place of exile. Singing takes them home to West Papua. Together we're going to tell you a story of a wonderful musical tradition, an ancient culture, and a nightmare in the modern world. I first encountered West Papua in 1999. I'm a tourist on a hiking expedition with my friends, enchanted by the wild and the exotic. We're recording our big adventure. I'm trying to walk away from the Western world. This is as far as I can go.
Thank you, welcome to country.
All I know of this place are images of Papuan men carrying Australian soldiers during World War II. This highland jungle is part of the Republic of Indonesia. The tribal people are speaking Indonesian, which is a complete surprise. They are pleased that I do too. A local chief says if I fork over a wad of rupiah, he'll show me something I'll never forget. This is a bit of a cultural zoo. Locals performing for money. I love being pushed out of my white tourist comfort zone. They love making fun of me. As the old man's gnarled fingers fondle my plums, I'm wondering what I've got myself into.
It's very contemporary. Warna tanah.
Yeah.
Earth colour.
For the first time in my life, I feel free.
Seperti orang asli tapi
I now know this was the beginning of my own rite of passage, which is central to my life and who I have become. This couldn't be more different from Indonesia. Naked, exuberant ancestor worshippers living on pigs. These Dani men give the first indication that something is wrong. People are under pressure to conform.
Kalau orang-orang tua di sini, mereka tidak mau pakai pakaian. Bangunan tidak mau. Ada orang Indonesia, guru-guru harus pakai pakaian, tapi tidak. Harus.
When word spreads that they can speak to me, people open up with stories. Guarded whispers of missing sons, murdered husbands, villages burnt to the ground. Never on camera. I'm totally ill-equipped. We're on holiday and not ready for these horror stories. The locals are talking about thousands of murdered people. I am shaken. Why isn't this front page news? As we cross back to Papua New Guinea, the penny finally drops. We're not hiking in a Stone Age tourist paradise. We've been blundering around in an undeclared war zone. I'm hooked and haunted. I'm on a political and personal journey. These musicians are part of the small West Papuan community living in Melbourne. They're recording modern songs based on old traditions. Donnie is a natural musician. He's young, but he's already a leader. Jacob knows all the songs, old and new. He's a songman and a political leader in exile. They are working with David Bridie, a major figure in Australian music. He is also passionately committed to the music of our region. West Papuans carry their myths in their music. Donnie's escape from the Indonesian army is a kind of myth. A sea journey in a giant canoe. They carry a video camera. He left as his ancestors came, across the ocean, sailing for days, singing.
Perasaan kami saat di perjalanan ya kami begitu sangat takut. Kami harus menyeberangi lautan dan kami dikejar-kejar polisi. Dan saya bertanggung jawab atas kedua adik saya dan saya membawa turut serta mereka. Hari keempat makanan sudah habis, kami cuma minum air hujan. Dan adik-adik saya merasa sangat menyesal sejujurnya karena kenapa adik-adik saya terlibat. Lebih baik saya sebagai kakak yang mati daripada adik-adik saya. Kami sering menangis di perahu, tiap hari kami tidak pernah lihat daratan. Ketika perasaan kami melihat daratan adalah sangat sukacita sekali. Saya yang mengetahui bahwa pulau itu dan saya memberi kode atau aba-aba kepada seluruh teman-teman yang ada di pulau bahwa daratan ini adalah daratan Australia. Kami menangis, kami saling berpelukan. Saya tidak bisa menggambarkan perasaan saya dengan kata-kata, cuman hanya air mata. Karena tanah impian kami untuk kami tiba.
Here Donnie meets Jacob Rumbiak for the first time. The Uniting Church has flown him in to help explain the immigration process. Donnie and the 43 others are in mandatory detention.
Mengapa saya tinggalkan Papua? Perlu diketahui bahwa keluarga orang tua kami adalah orang tua yang mantan pejuang tahun 70-an, di mana ayah saya pernah dipenjara di Kalisosok, Surabaya. Saya lihat di sini banyak terjadi pembunuhan-pembunuhan misterius yang terjadi di tempat kami, Wamena.
After 2 months in detention, Donnie and his friends are given temporary protection visas.
Long journey from Christmas Island to Melbourne, but now I feel maybe I dream, maybe I now dream, or I can't live now. I'm in Melbourne.
The Indonesians want the refugees back. The Australian government accepts their story. They are political refugees. It's a diplomatic crisis.
Donnie's a lovely kid, and he's got his 2 younger brothers with him. And it's a story in itself that a father would send away his 3 young sons, possibly never to see them ever again, because he feared for their safety.
Lagi suaraku ini yang buku balas kurang bagus sekali.
Iya, tidak terlalu, tapi tidak apa-apa, harus. Kita start lagi.
Mambo Simbo, tes itu coba.
Mambo Simbo.
Mambo Simbo.
I've been living on and off in Indonesia since I was a teenager. I've become part of a Javanese family and have many close Indonesian friends. Many Australians have a 2-dimensional view of Indonesia as a desperate third world country with good beaches and cheap holidays. I'm enchanted by the fantastic gallery of cultures across thousands of islands. I am spellbound by the Javanese shadow puppets. They're an extraordinary cultural mishmash. Ancient Hindu stories, Muslim values, and animist fears and demons. The form is high art, but wildly popular with ordinary people. I adopt the fat philosopher fool Samar as my own personal god and protector. Since that sinister journey to West Papua in 1999, I explore Indonesia with new eyes. I seek out the academics and artists. They show me a hidden empire that permeates the whole country. Like the wandering Samar, I travel the islands further and further away from Java, as far as the Spice Islands, the Arafura Sea, and the land the Indonesians call Irian Jaya. To the Indonesians, this Melanesian island was the savage East, a place of slaves and birds of paradise, war and cannibals, shrunken heads and jungle demons. In the 16th century, the Portuguese came here. They called it Terra dos Papuas, land of the curly hairs. The Dutch drove the Portuguese out and subdued the region in long, ugly wars. To the modern scientific West, this is the 2nd largest island on Earth, a unique haven of biodiversity with the largest rainforests in Asia. It is also an economic bonanza. In the high mountains is a new El Dorado, the Freeport gold mine, the largest on Earth. The Papuans are so immersed in nature and music, they say that all men are birds.
Karya desa anamore Pokani mau waya imamoko matu Akai bipamare Mare mare.
These are political songs composed by Arnold App.
Arnold App is a pure symbol, a pure martyr for the West Papuan people. This nation of singers and songwriters, that he's the chief songwriter. He went to Sindawasi University in Jayapura and he was I guess a musicologist. He went around to all different parts of West Papua and recorded the songs, his West Papuan songs. Music's everywhere. You can't kind of separate it really from everyday life. In the way that a mother sings to children, there everybody's a musician, everybody sings. I mean, songs are so powerful in West Papua that they're banned from being sung publicly, they're banned from being sung on radio, and you're not going to suppress a popular resistance movement by banning singing.
I want to make music my life. For me personally, music, it's been a great tool, I think, to tell the world about West Papua. Music can unite us. And this is the thing that Indonesia doesn't like at all. They want us to be apart, they want us to be, hate each other. And music has been great for us.
David Bridie has run regular Sing Sing concerts for the last 10 years. They showcase the music and cultures of traditional Australia and across the Pacific. This time he's invited Donnie to join him on stage. For months after they arrived, Donnie and his brothers are in legal limbo. When they are given full refugee status, the Indonesian government is outraged. Even in the villages, most Indonesians passionately believe their claim to West Papua. The tension leads to a quite extraordinary fight, a tit-for-tat cartoon war across the mass media. It never raises the real story and degenerates into insults about copulating dogs. In Australia, a small group of academic experts have a deeper understanding of Indonesia's claim to West Papua. Professor Budiman was born in Java and was politically active for many years.
West Papua was taken by Indonesia because it was part of Indonesia when Indonesia proclaimed its independence. Secondly, for economic reasons, West Papua is full of natural resources.
After World War II, the Indonesians defeated the Dutch to finally destroy an empire that lasted 300 years. But the Dutch kept West Papua. They groomed it for independence and built a basic university in Jayapura. Schools, hospitals, and Christianity all flourished. But Indonesia's founding father, President Sukarno, claimed West Papua to unify his fledgling nation.
Sukarno's argument was the Dutch retention of New Guinea was a threat to Indonesian sovereignty. It meant that the Indonesian Revolution was not complete. The construct, the rationale of Indonesia as a nation state is a political concept. It is not based on the presumption of a common cultural, ethnic, religious identity.
Indonesia likes to have cultural diversity, and with the inclusion of West Papua, we prove that we are really a diverse nation that can be united.
In Java, I meet Dr. George Adejondro, a leading Indonesian expert on Suharto and the Indonesian military.
This imagined community of Indonesia has been so deeply inculcated through songs and through pictures, maps and so on, that even a person in Java who has never been to West Papua or never been to Aceh who think that Indonesia without Aceh or without West Papua is not Indonesia.
Jacob was just a boy when Indonesia annexed the Dutch colony.
Pemerintah Kerajaan Belanda telah mempersiapkan masa depan Papua untuk merdeka. Ketika saya berusia 3 tahun, di tahun 1961, untuk pertama kalinya saya menyaksikan pengibaran bendera Papua Barat, Morning Star. 3 minggu setelah itu, seluruh wilayah tanah Papua dicaplok oleh kekuatan militer Indonesia.
Fearing for his family's life, Jacob's father took them to live deep in the jungle. All over the country, people began to fight. West Papua has 250 different cultures, and they are all based on war. They are ferocious in the jungle, with little more than spears and arrows. Fragment by fragment, they form the nucleus of a guerrilla army, Organisasi Papua Merdeka, the OPM. But the Indonesian army, Tentara Nasional Indonesia, the TNI, were battle-hardened veterans.
Indonesia got its independence not through negotiations, but through military conflict. So the hero of Indonesian independence were basically military.
The origins of the TNI really date back to the Dutch period when it developed its own internal, localised, so-called native military force. And that was influenced in the 1930s by what you might call Dutch fascism. When the Japanese invaded during the Second World War, they took over that force and they retrained it and instilled their own values, which again were fascistic in character.
The security forces are everywhere in Java. Walk the streets and you find parades celebrating the heroic story of the fight against the Dutch. This one's for Independence Day, and the veterans glow with pride. But the mystique of the old soldiers is slipping away.
Right on.
My friends in Java bring an Indonesian sense of humour to their politics. It's the spirit of the lowly Samar. Sukarno and the army were the new kings of the old Java. By 1965, General Sukarno had completed the independence jigsaw puzzle, but he courted the USSR, a grave mistake in the growing Cold War. His balancing act came undone. The Americans backed General Suharto, and a military coup so violent that it terrified Indonesian society.
And what we saw is the murder of between 500,000 and anything up to 2 million people in the period between 1965, 66 and into early 1967.
Suharto's bloodbath created a culture of fear and silence that sustains the army even now.
Suharto developed his emporium, business emporium based on his family and the Chinese. Suharto and the military were together in exploiting the rich of the country.
Suharto is the most successful thief in the Third World, rumoured to have stolen between $15 and $35 billion.
Everything must go. Hey, it's me, President Suharto. Big country, everything goes. We got gold, we got oil, forests of timber. Who wants Bali? Guess only no reason.
Donnie is the second generation born into conflict. Jacob saw the militarisation of West Papua with his own eyes. In 1969, 30,000 TNI were shipped in for the United Nations independence referendum. Jacob's father led his family out of the jungle to participate. Only 1,026 West Papuans were asked to vote. Jacob's uncle was one of them.
Om kandung saya ketika itu ditampung juga dalam penampungan selama 6 minggu. Tekanan itu katakan bahwa jika engkau memilih bersatu dengan Indonesia, maka engkau pasti selamat. Tetapi jika engkau memilih memisahkan diri dari Indonesia, maka lidahmu akan dipotong dan engkau akan dibunuh.
The conduct of the act of free choice, I think, was the word that he used, was a sham. Shouldn't surprise anybody. It was never the intention of the Indonesian government of the day for it to be anything else.
Ketika jajak pendapat itu berakhir dan tidak adil, maka seluruh keluarga saya kami kembali ke hutan.
When my friends were growing up, dissent was driven underground. The TNI pushed its way into ordinary life.
Kita sejak kecil tahun 70-an 80-an hanya punya satu televisi dan satu radio, dan itu semuanya milik pemerintah, dan dia masuk melalui jalur-jalur kesenian dan program-program berita tentang bagaimana bagusnya militer masuk desa, membangun desa juga dan sebagainya. Dan itu jelas membunuh pemikiran kritis yang ada di keluarga, setiap keluarga di Indonesia.
Many younger Indonesians have a love-hate attitude towards the TNI. There is a great national pride, but there's also fear.
Indonesians' feeling and what they think about the military ranges from very, very supportive of the military to people who are very anti-military because of maybe personal experiences, or because of intellectually they're dreaming of an Indonesia which is a full-fledged civilian democracy with a multi-party system and where people can express whatever feelings they have.
In the mid-90s, many students stood up against the military dictatorship of Suharto and his cronies. The grey vision of the army was breaking apart.
Jadi buat aku masih kekerasan, menjadi negara kekerasan ya. Baik itu institusi modern pun itu juga membuat kekerasan. Seperti Angkatan Bersenjata di Indonesia itu masih melakukan membuat sistematik dengan kekuatan dasar mereka, itu membuat menyelesaikan persoalan dengan senjata sampai sekarang gitu loh. Di Aceh, di Papua, dengan institusi modern, tapi kelakuan mereka masih seperti orang primitif gitu.
In 1997, Asian economies collapsed. Suharto was brought down in a storm of popular protest. In the post-Suharto void, East Timor had a United Nations referendum and secured its independence. As the TNI left East Timor, the West Papuans sensed their time had come. The TNI saw the nation coming apart. Many TNI officers and troops and even militia leaders were shipped directly to West Papua.
Of course, there are similar issues. There's a local claim for independence. There's a local population that's unhappy. The military presence is significant. It runs the territory like a personal fiefdom, as it did in East Timor.
The main problem is how to instill more unity among the people, among the 250 ethno-linguistic groups over such a big territory. And that is why the independence movement in West Papua has been much slower to develop compared with East Timor, or even compared with Aceh.
In 2000, a year after East Timor's independence, the West Papuan activists seized their chance. They voted for an independent leader and government. The new president was Teus Elaway. This was Presidium 2000, the Papuan Spring. Suharto was gone, but the military kleptocracy he built remained intact. The Papuan Spring was nipped in the bud with the arrest of most of the leaders. Teus Elaway was murdered, strangled by Kopassus, the Indonesian special forces, trained by America and Australia. Donnie remembers the months following the Presidium 2000.
Anda tahu waktu terjadi kerusuhan di Wamena, itu ada ribuan tentara masuk dikirim, Anda tahu pesawat Hercules, dengan lengkap senjata, dengan ada beberapa tank yang masuk hartop-hartop, dan kita tidak punya senjata, masyarakat hanya telanjang pakai sepatu, tidak punya apa-apa. Seperti Anda mau melawan negara apa ke negara apa. Ketika kami pergi, ada ratusan orang Wamena mati. Kami tidak bisa tahu itu siapa, muka mereka hanya hancur dan berblur. Kita harus pergi untuk mengubur mereka. Sehingga yang terjadi, Anda tahu, bulldozer mereka harus menggali tanah dan hanya dibuang, hanya begitu saja. Family datang, where's my kids, I don't know, it's just people everywhere. Tidak punya waktu untuk identifikasi siapa ini. Jadi masyarakatnya diambil dengan bulldozer lalu dibuang dalam tanah dengan begitu saja. Itu menjadi mimpi buruk kurang lebih untuk sampai saya 3 bulan, 4 bulan mimpi buruk. Itu mungkin teman saya yang saya tidak pernah ketemu sampai sekarang.
Resistance again went underground, but political awareness increased. Activist student groups mushroomed. Universities became crucibles of discontent. In 2006, students at Cendrawasih University protested against the Freeport gold mine. They tapped into underground activist groups and a rising tide of student protest. This time, the violence was witnessed by an Australian priest, Peter Woods.
There was a second day of a demonstration put on by the West Papuan Highland students mainly in the main street, blocked the road in front of the university. There was a fair bit of heat being generated on both sides. And then the police cleared away the burning tyres and the broken branches and trees and that sort of thing on the road and advanced to right where the students were.
The Freeport gold mine is a lightning rod for anger in West Papua. The plight of the local Amungme people is seen as a symbol for what is wrong.
Polusi yang mereka buat ke sungai itu sangat mempengaruhi sekali untuk mereka memancing. Mereka mengalami sakit perut, muntaber, diari. Mau berburu di hutan, burung-burung sudah lari, sudah terbang karena polusi itu.
These people have been kicked out, they've been given a token payment, and if they've protested, they've been shot.
Papua is a rich country, not exploited yet. They need the technology from Java also. They cannot do it by themselves.
It's not just Western resource companies with investments in West Papua. 2/3 of the TNI's annual budget comes from its privately owned companies. West Papua is the TNI's hidden cash cow.
It's involved in a range of activities, from legal industries through to illegal activities like illegal logging, illegal mining, extortion, gambling, prostitution, gun running, and so on.
There are many TNI generals who have their own private business.
But all of them have timber concessions. So that is interesting, that the Navy has timber concession, the Air Force has timber concession, and the police has their timber concessions. There is a danger to the global environment if the military are not brought under control, very simply because of their involvement in illegal logging.
The pace of logging in Indonesia is ruthless. The equivalent of 6 football fields of rainforest is cut down every minute. Jakarta has legislated to force the TNI out of their businesses, but West Papua is a very long way from Java.
Military businesses has to become disattached from military interest, but it is more difficult to civilize whenever these military businesses are run by retired generals.
The TNI has been described by many commentators as being a mafia-like operation. So yes, it's like the mafia, but on a very big and very organised scale.
The anti-Freeport protests at Cendrawasih University were tolerated by the security forces for a number of hours. Suddenly, anger and frustration exploded into violence.
Somebody threw a bottle, somebody fired from within the crowd. It seemed to be just too dangerous to stay around, and we all made a run for it. But after that, a lot of violence occurred on both sides.
By now, Donnie and his friends were in Australia. They tracked the violence by email and mobile phone. The rest of the world is silent. They take the bus to Canberra to make a fuss in front of the Indonesian embassy.
And wherever there is an uprising, the military's answer, the military's response is always the same. Crack down, kill a lot of people, instill fear, and think that thereby the independence movement will subside.
And indeed, the Indonesian military has been very successful at closing down communications. It stopped journalists going in, it's limited human rights workers from going in and coming out with information about what's going on in there.
Australians know very little about West Papua because West Papua is a very sensitive thing for Indonesian as a country, and Australia doesn't want to confront or offend Indonesia.
With arrest and retribution hanging over their heads, Donnie and Jacob can't go back to West Papua, but I can. This time with eyes wide open. I carry with me the stories and memories of Jacob and Donnie and his friends. I feel like Samar, the little fool of the shadow plays, travelling back to the dangerous kingdom.
It's where the military dominates, it's where they don't want foreign prying eyes, and it's always been difficult for journalists to get in. Even to this day, it remains that.
There are now 2.5 million people in West Papua. 1/3 are Indonesian migrants. Nearly all the rest are farmers and fishermen. I'm trying to get a sense of ordinary life. In a local taxi, a farmer asks me to stay with his family. Donnie's parents came to these highlands as school teachers. He remembers growing up in these mountains.
Anda bisa dengar suara burung berkicau, Anda bisa dengar bunyi air kadang-kadang mengalir di sungai. Ada ibu-ibu yang jalan ke pasar sambil memakai noken mereka, bawa ubi ke pasar. Anak-anak kecil telanjang, tidak pakai baju, mereka kaki kosong, jalannya agak sedikit lubang-lubang sedikit. Terus gunungnya biru sekali, cuacanya dingin, baunya sangat natural sekali ya, gimana sangat natural.
These high mountain villages live in the clouds that roll in as the sun sets. I'm staying with Ibu Dina and Pak Joda, traditional highland farmers.
kata babi ini saya mengerti karena orang mau perang babi, orang yang mati babi, orang yang pencuri apa babi, orang kawin babi, kalaupun di adat. Serang bunuh babi, bunuh orang itu dasarnya babi.
This is a very confronting lifestyle to all outsiders. For Indonesians, it has the particular issue of their Islamic taboo against pigs.
Mang ko ano ko itong ka sige na ko peke hina ko sa una ka ba ni ba mari.
Beni, sekolah, pergi sekolah. Ayo, cepat, ini sudah jam.
Surgis is albino, like many Highland children, and the eldest of Pug Jordan's 3 sons.
Mau ke sekolah ya? Jauh ke sekolah enggak? Jauh?
Dekat.
Nah, oke. Dan ini di kelas berapa?
3.
Kelas 3? Ini?
1.
Kelas 1. Masih di kelas 1.
Lagi ke sekolah. Yes. Masuk laut deh.
The Indonesian constitution guarantees the right of religious and cultural freedom, but local languages are banned in school. Everyone must speak Indonesian. This is how Donnie learnt the language.
Sarana, buku, komputer, kita sangat kekurangan komputer, kita sangat kekurangan buku. Guru-guru yang ada itu levelnya tidak sama seperti guru-guru yang ada di Java.
Jacob knows this country too. His father was a Christian priest. This was his parish until the family fled in 1963.
Setelah saya berusia 11 tahun, saya kembali ke hutan. Saya dipromosikan sebagai komandan peleton yang membawahi 37 anggota gerilya. Kami melindungi penduduk yang mendiami desa terpencil di tanah Papua dari serangan militer Indonesia yang sangat ganas dan tidak manusiawi. Hal itu membuat pemerintah Jakarta sangat marah dan menjuluki saya sebagai teroris nomor 1. Padahal saya hanya anak-anak saja.
Ayo, let's go.
By most of the usual indicators of poverty levels, education levels, health status, Papua is one of the poorest and most disadvantaged areas in the entire country.
Despite the billions that have poured out of the natural resources, the logging that's gone on, the Freeport mine that is the biggest taxpayer within Indonesia, the people themselves complain, where is the fruit for us, the development that's going to happen for us? I observed a fourth world country.
Well, development in West Papua is not sophisticated, very quote-unquote primitive in a sense, just basic. They try very hard, but the government is very busy, and so education and health is not touched by the government. But again, because the people are self-sufficient, they don't complain. They are relatively quite healthy.
Coming from the smokehouse. We're smoking for the load. Smoking for the load.
Sudah berapa tahun begini?
Ini umur baru 7 tahun. 7 tahun.
Ini dari lahir, ya?
Iya, dari lahir.
Jadi,
Ruben has a chronic ear infection. He is in constant pain.
rumah sakit yang paling dekat di mana?
Paling dekat itu di puskesmas saja.
Kurima saja.
Di Kurima, tapi tidak bisa menolong. Tapi selalu ke rumah sakit terus, ke apotek, ke poliklinik itu semua, tapi tidak menolong sampai sekarang.
Dan orang dokter di sana sekarang ada enggak?
Tidak ada, hanya kepala puskesmas saja, orang sini asli. Tapi dia belum pernah. Kita kasih keterangan pakai bahasa Indonesia, bagaimanapun dia tidak bisa kasih surat pengantar, lain-lain. Dia hanya suntik obat, memberi obat saja.
Karena bos, kalau rumah sakit atau tangma atau ini, kita orang semua ini orang Ramudus tidak ada. Hanya orang putra daerah sendiri ambil obat di Wamena, bawa layani saja.
We want to help them, but we have some limitations. Indonesians are still developing. Maybe it needs some time before health and education facilities come to them.
When I was in these mountains 10 years ago, I heard whispers about the Indonesians. Following the Papuan Spring of 2000, things got worse. Now everyone is terrified. No one will talk. It's time to leave. And of course, that means a pig.
Fotoan ini untuk apa?
Ini untuk tanah bukti. Untuk bos datang ke sini toh. Ke sini baru umpamanya kalau Bapak kalau tahun berapa atau bulan berapa ke sini, tanah bukti Bapak pegang di sini. Atau Bapak bisa bawa ke Australia, bisa tunjuk teman-teman atau ya di situ.
Kita bunuh babi ini.
Kita bunuh babi ini. Kampung ini. Bapaknya namanya saya di sini. Begitu. Bisa lihat, bisa kantung begini baru bisa bawa.
Ya. Kasih dia sekarang.
Bisa?
Nggak bisa karena kalau kita mau, saya mau tapi tidak boleh karena government Australia bilang kamu tidak boleh masuk ke negara dengan ini dari binatang, tidak boleh. Ya.
Karena kebiasaan di Bapak di sini saja.
Ini tinggal di sini saja.
Tinggal dengan Bapak.
Ya.
Makasih.
Ya, terima kasih Pak.
Bapak ada kamu saya.
Kasih Mama.
Kasih, give it to Mom.
Kasih Mama,
I understand why these people are so reluctant to open up. The brutality of the Indonesian military climaxed right here in the Baliem Valley in 1977. It's known in local history as Wamena Bleeds.
Sehingga waktu rakyat yang takut, itu mereka masuk ke dalam gereja, kemudian mereka dibakar di dalam gereja. Banyak perempuan yang diperkosa, kemudian pakai sangkur, tikam kemaluan mereka, terus potong kemaluan dari suami-suami, kasih ke istri makan, dan mereka perkosa istri di depan suami dan anak. Dan ini peristiwa yang sangat mengerikan sekali dalam sejarah di tanah Papua.
Jayapura is the provincial capital. It is now an Indonesian city. I am taken back to Java by the smell of satés and the sound of mosques. Jayapura is full of memories for Jacob too. After nearly 10 years in the jungle, he surrendered here with his family. Because he was intelligent and affable, they decided to re-educate him as part of a Melanesian elite.
Setelah keluar dari hutan, saya dikirim oleh pemerintah Indonesia ke Jawa dan belajar di Jawa hingga menyelesaikan universitas di Jawa.
In Java, he embraced the teachings of Gandhi and Martin Luther King. Most West Papuan activists accept the theory and tactics of non-violent protest. The OPM in the jungle has become a last resort.
Tahun 1987, saya dikirim kembali sebagai staf pengajar pada Universitas Negeri Cenderawasih Jayapura, dan ketika itu saya mulai aktif sebagai seorang politikus. Di tahun 1989 saya memimpin suatu gerakan perjuangan kemerdekaan tanpa kekerasan. Setelah itu saya ditangkap oleh TNI dan diklasifikasikan sebagai subversif. Sebelum dan setelah peradilan, saya dibawa ke tempat khusus, di mana tempat itu saya diperintahkan untuk mengambil air di dalam bakul, kemudian saya harus tumpahkan ke plat besi, dan setelah itu saya di strom. Dan penyiksaan yang berkali-kali. Saya divonis hukuman mati dan dia turun menjadi hukuman seumur hidup.
I am in search of the legendary OPM. Their small platoons are an Indonesian nightmare. They come from the jungle to harass and kill, eluding the TNI for 40 years. In an OPM refugee camp 5 kilometres inside Papua New Guinea, I move in with Commander Nico and his wife, Ibu Dorcas.
OPM bukan hanya di tempat ini. OPM punya sektor-sektor pertahanan di berbagai tempat di seluruh Papua Barat. Tapi mayoritas rakyat Papua Barat adalah anggota OPM. Kami bahwa itu mereka itu kelompok teroris. Saya bukan kelompok teroris. Saya menuntut hak kedaulatan saya harus dikembalikan.
Hai tanahku Papua, 3. Hai tanahku Papua.
I don't think there was any point from 63 to now where the OPM and any other resistance groups threatened Indonesian control.
Saya asal saya memang dari Kabupaten Merauke, dan saya masuk sini karena tekanan politik, karena aktivitas saya sebagai seorang mahasiswa yang terlibat di dalam persoalan politik perjuangan kemerdekaan Papua. Akhirnya saya diteror, dikejar, akhirnya saya harus meloloskan diri dan beberapa dokumen penting saya masuk di markas di tahun 1986 dan saya bertempat di tempat ini sampai dengan tahun 94 itu saya kawin di sini dan ya mereka yang paling lama di sini yaitu orang-orang dari pengungsi politik 60-an. Mama mereka sudah meninggal, ada yang lahir di sini, ada yang waktu kecil lari masuk di sini. So mereka sudah boleh dikatakan sekitar 40-an tahun mereka.
Dia nanti jadi. Dia punya jadi klasifikasi laki.
Semua anak kecil sudah lahir di sini.
Ya. Di kamar yang citizen Papua.
Cari sayur, togok sagu, kita kasih makan sagu. Betul, sulit. Perempuan di sini dia tidak bisa bantu. Kita sendiri. Saya sendiri setengah mati, anak adik perempuan saya. Kesana. Anak-anak yang sekarang ini, ya dalam sekolah juga tidak ada guru-guru. Guru-guru datang, tinggal 1 bulan kembali. Ada kala 1 minggu saja guru-guru lari kembali.
Mereka paling banyak takut jangan sampai nanti TNI masuk melakukan tindakan brutal terhadap masyarakat, mengejar, bunuh. Jadi
the TNI have no respect for the border. They come and go as they please.
Sering membuat guru-guru itu merasa panik, takut, terus lari pulang.
Skotchema village is the first safe place for the trickle of fugitives escaping from West Papua.
Apakah kau mau untuk klaim atau apakah kau mau berusaha mendapatkan status politik, asylum politik atau permanent protection?
This camp is the final destination for students who ran from the security forces as the anti-Freeport protests were broken up.
Pada tanggal 16 aksi sikap daripada setelah kejadian itu sekitar jam 3, jam 4 sikap daripada para pihak kepolisian militer semakin brutal. Jadi mereka datang seperti kayak mereka melawan musuh di hutan, tembak masyarakat, tembak saja di jalan-jalan.
These young men and women are the best and brightest. A Melanesian elite, the Indonesians, were grooming to run the country. In one afternoon, they lost everything.
2 jam 3 jadi kami jalan. Hutan itu turun naik kali, gunung. Jadi hari itu kami sudah tidak makan. Tidak tahu makan yang baik. Tidur hanya begini saja, tidur di hutan. Minumnya air, pokoknya air got yang bisa kita minum, kita minum.
They walked for 6 weeks. The Indonesians are very good at concealing the truth of West Papua from the outside world. The students prepare a statement for the visiting camera.
Setelah memulai operasinya tanggal 1 Juli 1973, kejahatan politik dan demokrasi PTVI atas rakyat Papua itu dilanjutkan dengan berbagai kejahatan lainnya. Pelanggaran hak asasi manusia Papua, perusakan lingkungan, penghancuran ekonomi tradisional Papua, penghancuran tatanan dan nilai-nilai adat, dan lain sebagainya.
Ya, orang bicara tapi macam don tidak senang kah begitu, tidak senang mau bikin politik di sini di kampung. Don bilang apa mau bikin politik itu pergi ke hutan baru bikin politik di hutan atau ke luar negeri dan bikin politik di sini. Macam masyarakat di sini don sudah rasa bosan begitu.
Nano and his brother Arnaldus are desperate to contact their mother.
Paling di telepon juga kita tidak mungkin bicara sama. Tapi kalau pakai handphone bisa tuh HP. Oke, berarti kita bisa lari ke batas ini bisa. Ada HP ada.
They haven't seen their mother since beginning the long walk to Papua New Guinea.
Dan itu tanggal 18 hari Sabtu. Sudah perempuan saya telepon. Adik saya, mama sudah ditangkap. Tarik ibu saya keluar dari dalam rumah, tarik langsung dia pukul di sini dengan pistol, gagang pistol. Pukul darah, terus pukul sini, injak. Memang sempat saya ketemu dengan ibu saya waktu itu ada praktek di Arso. Ya, tangan mama saya dibakar-bakar, saya dari pihak militer. Saya dipukul, mungkin juga di strom, itu memang jadi saya sakit hati sekali memang. Perlakuan. Ya, ada sempat saya ketemu mama saya satu kali. Anak-anak jalan terus. Tidak boleh mundur dalam hal ini, perjuangan ini. Tidak boleh mundur, mama siap rela mati untuk perjuangan ini. Jadi memang sempat saya ketemu mama saya satu kali. Dan memang saya rasa perlakuan Indonesia memang terlalu jahat sekali.
Banyak sekali teman-teman saya yang juga tahanan politik mati di penjara. Saya menjalani hukuman kurungan dalam penjara selama 10 tahun. Saya diisolasi selama 2 tahun 8 bulan sehingga tubuh saya juga mengalami separuh lumpuh.
In 1999, after 10 years in jail, Jacob escaped house arrest in Jakarta and slipped into East Timor to join the United Nations referendum. He was attacked by pro-Indonesian militia.
Selanjutnya saya ke Darwin menumpang pesawat terbang Royal Australia Air Force.
Like Jacob, musician Arnold App was charged and jailed for subversion.
This last song when he was in prison, in police custody in Polda Jayapura. That's place also I stay in 1989 when I got caught. So that song talk about himself, but also that's picture about Papua. Papua like a eagle hunted by Indonesian military and killed.
He wrote this song and recorded it on a very makeshift portable cassette player and gave it to the prison officer to deliver to his wife.
Hidup ini suatu misteri.
He got taken out to the outskirts of Jayapura in a van and told to get out of the van and to run away into the forest, and then was shot.
Beginilah kenyataan ini. Aku terkurung di dalam duniaku yang ku damai. Yang ku
killing the poets. That's pretty desperate. But it also shows what kind of people West Papuans are, that for them their heroes are, is this songman.
Jadi buruan akhirnya terbunuh.
He is the poet laureate for the Melanesian people of West Papua, and those songs will always be sung.
Ya, terus terima kasih banyak sekali Pak. Sampai jumpa ya.
Saya ucap terima kasih karena sudah membantu saya dengan bapak saya di Bugiam. Bisa eksposkan berita kepada internasional bahwa inilah tuntutan rakyat Papua. Harus dilanjutkan terus. Terima kasih.
Ya, mari Pak, mari. Terima kasih juga ya.
Tolong.
Bu, terima kasih banyak ya.
Sama-sama.
Sampai jumpa ya. Oke, terima kasih banyak. Ya, terima kasih ya. Sampai jumpa ya.
Jangan lupa.
No way. Mari saja. Gila ya. Ini namanya gila sekali itu. Terima kasih Pak ya.
I was introduced into West Papua through the prism of Indonesia, and it is Indonesia who will ultimately decide West Papua's fortunes. Some say Samar was an ancient Javanese deity. Deposed by the arrival of Hinduism, he became a servant. Even though he's at the bottom, he is creative and has the ear of the king. He can change the world.
Indonesia has undergone very considerable political change. The Indonesia that we look at now is much more open, much more competitive, much more chaotic.
We've seen reforms in Aceh, we've seen reforms in the Indonesian heartland, but West Papua to date has been left out of the reform process. So really what they need to do is persuade the Indonesian government and the international community of the moral legitimacy of their argument, and they can only do that through peaceful civil means.
I think stopping military aid to Indonesia, stop aiding the Indonesian military, is an international campaign which has to be fought for both by pro-democracy forces in Indonesia as well as the supporters in Australia and in other countries.
Saat ini terdapat 50.000 TNI di seluruh wilayah tanah Papua. Mengapa harus begitu? Kami rakyat Papua Barat ingin agar akar persoalan di tanah Papua dapat diselesaikan dengan cara-cara yang sangat bermartabat, benar, sebagaimana cara yang dilakukan di Timor Leste lewat referendum di sana.
Cuman yang membuat saya sedih adalah mungkin hubungan yang jauh dari keluarga, dan ada banyak teman yang sampai saat ini kami masih berhubungan lewat email, dan mereka sangat mengalami kesusahan di sana. Dan
Yo, Tony. Hey, how you doing? It's been a long time. You'll be proud of me, and not just my parents, but whoever will watch this show. It's gonna be going out there, and people will see that West Papua is actually part of Melanesia.
For any singer, this is a great moment, to take the stage with a large audience for the first time. But Donnie's music is banned at home, and it's only here that he is free to sing, to share the joy and the sorrow of his culture. I believe art is a weapon and culture is life. As long as the West Papuans can sing, they will prevail, and Unlap will never die.
Sun I go down, sun I come up, no worries tabiet, long West Papua. Sun I go down, sun I come up, no worries tabiet, long West Papua. We're like a freedom, freedom, long West Papua. All one talk belong to me. All like in freedom, freedom, long West Papua. All one talk belong to me. Only run away and about. Now hide long big boost. Only like in freedom. Sat by a highway mall. Only run away and about. Now hide long big boots. Only like him freedom. Sat by a highway mall. Only like him freedom, yeah. Freedom from West Papua. All one talk belong to me. Freedom, yeah, yeah, freedom from West Papua. All of my talk belong to me. Ting ting belong all. Now believe belong all. Long independence. One Palata. Merdeka! Thank you, Mas.
Nogesa noge noriga wai ui, wogesa woge noriga wai ui, wegu ili leknoza wai ui, wegu yali leknoza wai ui, yungunu gi woge me wai ui, melanu gi woge me wai ui, aigonda ukera wai ui, ailima ukera wai ui, seraga mi maneke wai ui, wogesa woge noriga wai ui. Wegu ili leknoza wai uwe, wegu yali leknoza wai uwe, yungunu gi woge me wai uwe, melanu gi woge me wai uwe, aigonda ukera wai uwe, ailima ukera wai uwe, seraga mi maneke wai uwe, wogesa woge noriga wai uwe, wegu ili leknoza wai uwe, wegu yali leknoza wai uwe. Yungunu gi woge me wai uwe, melanu gi woge me wai uwe, aigonda ukera wai uwe, ailima ukera wai uwe, seraga mi maneke wai uwe, wogesa woge noriga wai uwe, weigonda ukera wai uwe, ailima ukera wai uwe, seraga mi maneke wai uwe, peramu kami maneke wai uwe. No base kuliaga wai uwe, nambulo kuliaga wai uwe.